Shalom, everyone. Today is December the 5th, 2022. We're discussing Parshat Vayishlah. All of these Parshiot in Breshit are complete with lots and lots of details and lots of stories. We could easily spend a class on, without exaggeration, practically each verse. I'm going to spend some time thinking about Esau today. This is the re-encounter of Jacob and Esau. Of course, the Parsha begins with Jacob's sending to Esau a delegation of malachim, of messengers, but specifically, he sends a series of gifts to him. We've talked about a little bit in the past. I want to go into this with a little more depth because I think that there is a subliminal message, and I've talked about one subliminal message in the past, but I think there's another message that's going on here with Jacob and Esau, because what we'll see is that by the end of the Parsha, there are two people that experience transformations. One of them, of course, is Jacob, as he has transformed from this exile to a family man. And the other is the transformation of Esau himself. And exactly how Esau is transformed, I think, is a question I'm going to leave dangling here, so that we can come to some answer to that, and really have a question as to how the Torah is dealing with him and what the Torah is trying to present about him. So I'm going to go into the earlier texts at the beginning of the Parsha. We're going to start sharing now. Here we go. So you see the text here? I have this called the subliminal message of Jacob's gift to Esau. We recall that Jacob is at the ford of the Jabbok. He is, Machanaim, really. Vayal and Sham Balayla Hahu. He spent the night there that night, and he took a gift from what was at hand for Esau, his brother. This, I think, is such a deceptive verse, okay? Because what I'm going to show is that it's not just haphazard. He was quite deliberate in what he decided here, okay? He took a gift from his brother from what was at hand. They just happened to have 200, she-goats 200, and kids 20, ewes 200, and rams 20, nursing camels and their young 30, cows 40, and bulls 10, she-asses 20, and colts 10. Okay, so this is an enormous package of animals. I'm gonna show you this in a second. I'm not going to show you the picture of it, but I'm going to just put it on the chart for you or something like that. So again, 200 she-goats, kids, 20 ewes, 200 rams, 20 nursing camels and their young, 30 cows, 40 bulls. It's a whole parade, and hold that word, parade. He handed them over to his servants, herd by herd separately, okay? So again, I'm using the word parade, and it's, the picture that is emerging from us from the text is that there's Esau and 400 men with him, and then he is basically standing somewhere where this parade of animals is floating by him, herd by herd separately, and said to his servants, Jacob said, cross on ahead of me and leave room between herd and herd. Okay? He charged the first group, saying, when Esau, my brother, meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And to whom do these ahead of you belong? Then say to your servant, to Yaakov, this is a gift sent to my lord to Esau, and here he himself is behind us. Thus he charged the second, and thus the third, And thus all that were walking behind the herd, saying, according to this word shall you speak to Esau when you come upon him. You shall say, also here your servant Yaakov is behind us. For he said to himself, I will wipe the anger from his face with a gift that goes ahead of my face afterwards. When I see his face, perhaps he will lift up my face. And then it said, the gift crossed over ahead of his face, but he spent the night on that night in the camp. He arose during the night and took his 2 wives, his 2 maids, and his 11 children to cross the Yabbok crossing. He took them and brought them across the river. He brought across what belonged to him, and Jacob was alone, and a man wrestled with him until the coming of the dawn. He saw that he could not prevail against him. He touched the socket of his thigh, and the socket of Yaakov's thigh was dislocated as he wrestled. I kept that in there because I just wanted to make sure that you had the context of this gift. So it's Jacob is returning. He sends out his messengers. He takes what he has at hand, namely, what adds up to 596 animals, okay? And I mentioned that to come back to in a second. What it just happens to have this lying around, okay? And he sends them herd by herd to Esau, and in a way, with a message that these belong to your servant, Jacob, and it's to appease him, to placate him. At least that's what the text is stating. The text is stating that this is as a way of providing an atonement, okay? Because Jacob, as we know, is quite guilty for what he has done. He feels very guilty about what he himself has done, and this is, it's quite a large gift, okay? And Nanette, you have a question, go ahead.
So yeah, it's a question. It's really more of a...
You're muted again, so you got on mute. Or I should resume. So let me go to the summary, okay? So who does he have here? It's a kind of parade. He's got 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 sheep, 30 milk camels and their male offering, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 asses and 10 male asses. So I've talked about this in the past, and you might be familiar with this. I've said, look, if you look at the ratio here, this is not only like he's greasing and he's being a salesman here. There's a message here. One of the messages is, 10 females to 1 male, 10 females to 1 male of goats, and 10 females to 1 male of sheep. That's a message. That's a very, very, it's not so subliminal. The camels, mother and male, we don't have the ratio, but I'm guessing we don't need a ratio of mothers and male calves, because camels, and here I'm kind of leaping out here on conjecture, but it's my conjecture is that camels, since they're not part of the diet of our ancestors, they're not certainly included in the ritual diet as listed in Leviticus 11. I know this is anachronistic here, but they don't eat camels, they eat sheep, okay? And camels appear in Genesis as beasts of burden, okay? So he's giving him beasts of burden, all right? They're not for eating. And we don't, and there are no adult males among the camels. Parenthesis, camels in the book of Genesis are anachronistic. Historically, camels don't appear till well after the patriarchal times. Why they appear is a huge archaeological and historical question. But the fact is that the narrator couldn't care less about history in archaeology the way we determine it. They're there because they represent something. There are 4 female cattle, so 40 cows and 10 bulls. A cow, as you know, is a large animal, a bull, a large animal. So he's not going to give them 200 cows and 20 bulls. They're much larger. He doesn't need to give them, that. He's got a, there's a message here. And 20 asses to 10 male asses. Again, these are beasts of burden. They're not eaten. Okay. So what's the easy message here? the easy message here is, Esau, you're a man, okay? And there's a joke here. The joke here is, this is you have to be impressed here by the ratio of female to male, right? Just as in the animals that I'm presenting to you, I'm acknowledging your masculinity, your virility here. So too, you must, this is what you should pursue in your life. And I think there is a subliminal male to male joke here, not joke, but the message is, your masculine virility now is on display and I'm acknowledging it for you. But there may be another message, okay? And I'm going to stop the share and get to Helene. Go ahead. Helene,
So what it looks like to me, I'm not male, so I'm not questioning you.
You can leap into solidarity and empathy. We're not restricted in our imaginative capacities in this class.
Sounds good. But it looks to me like a seed. That looks to me like he's giving Esau a seed of a business or a farm or whatever, because 10 females to 1 male in the days of artificial insemination, it could be 1 male to 100 females. Yes. 10 females to 1 male is a seed.
Very good. Okay, so you've anticipated part of my other point, okay? That this is a starter flock. That this is a starter.
That's exactly.
The starter. Okay, it's like yeast starter and Isaac. All right, so hold on to that thought for a second, because I want to go back to the whole notion of the parade idea, I'm gonna I'm gonna put my notes up for a second again. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to just look at my notes and put up the other screen. Just a second. All right. Consistent with what you said here. Okay. The meaning of this gift is a starter flock. Okay. So that as Helene correctly anticipated my chain of thought here, that there are I can discern here at least 2 subliminal messages. The first subliminal message is, haha, you're a man, and look, yeah, you go out and have 10 wives, okay, or multiple, which in fact, Jacob does have. He has his own 4, and perhaps we'll see something a little later with regard to Esau, okay? So, but more to the point, this is a starter flock here. Go ahead, Marlene, and then Annette.
They're also, except for the camels, they are part of the sacrificial system.
Correct. Okay, so and I'm hesitant to go there only because Esau for us is not that kind of figure. I mean, will he eventually, is that what's intended? It's a big question. I'm stuck on that. I'm willing to go so far in my imagination, but I can't imagine Esau being that kind of sacrificing kind of person, notwithstanding the fact that plenty of people, do that thing. Okay, Nanette, go ahead.
I'm going to take back what I said before about, is it possible that Jacob just wanted to be plain old nice with his brother? He wanted to share his wealth. He just wants to forget everything I said.
Yes,
maybe he just wants to be nice.
Very, very possible, and he wants to. And again, there is a transformation that has happened, and part of the what we've built up to in the scene that I'm not going to talk about is this scene at the Jabbok where he wrestles with the mysterious assailant. That is the boundary moment. That is where he's transformed, literally, physically. He will have a wound from that event that will change his life. Okay, Steve, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
2 things, just in response to the sacrificial system. There was no sacrificial system in those days. This is pre-Moses, so that
Correct.
really doesn't count.
But the
But
patriarchs,
they're domesticated. I look at this as a payment for his taking the birthright. He says, look, I'm rich now. Here, take this. I'll pay you for the birthright.
Okay,
Not,
good.
not in so many words, but that's
All
to
right.
me.
So I want just to, without, rebutting, it's not that there's no sacrificial system. You're right. There is no sacrificial system. So we don't want to project onto the stories of Genesis, the sacrificial system of Leviticus, even though I do. but they're involved in sacrificing. Okay, they're involved in doing stuff. When I said I project, I guess I retroject the Levitical system onto Genesis. I did it in one case with the Akedah, which is a ridiculous kind of comparison, because in studying the Akedah, I went above and beyond to demonstrate how impossible it would have been within the sacrificial system, which means that anybody who was familiar with the sacrificial system would read the Akedah as a very, very big puzzle, in addition to the puzzle that it is about God asking him to sacrifice. Marlene, go ahead.
But when the Parsha opens, the words that he says right away are that he's this sojourner. He doesn't admit to how much wealth he has, so that whatever he's giving is not going to give away what he has accumulated.
He
So that he's not
understates.
taking off his brother.
You're referring to his prayer or his supplication at the beginning, Katonti Mikol HaChasidim. He is really stating it quite humbly. He has amassed a lot of things here. He really has.
But doesn't want his brother to know that.
No,
That's why he divides.
I think we're all at the same point, and therefore we're reflecting different meanings here. And his objective is to get back into the land because he has to, because it's been promised to him, because it's a covenant. He has a problem. He has at least two problems. One problem is his brother wants to kill him. Second problem is he's got a whole family and quite a large retinue of people and animals and possessions. Okay, he is ripe for plunder. Okay, and he may want to conceal that, but in the end, he's going to have to be, as we say now today, transparent. He's going to have to show all his cards to his brother, which in fact he's trying to do. And the fact that he gives him this parade of animals, it says two things. It says, I'm looking at your virility. A, B, I'm giving you a starter flock, and C, I'm showing to you that I am a man of wealth, and that means that I want to convey my respect to you as in an honorable way. This is an exorbitant gift. It's a huge gift, okay, by any standards. I mean, a cow is a big gift, let alone 20 cows and 10 she cows, or 10, 20, whatever. Nanette, and then Bonnie, or Sheldon, or Bonnie.
No, it's
So-
Bonnie. So I just
Wait,
want
wait.
I just
No,
did a little
let Bonnie go. Let
Yeah.
Bonnie go. I'll wait. Bonnie, go.
just a little quick research I just did. Most dairy farms kill the most of the male calves because they're not worth anything.
Sure,
So
and that again, why would a female calf be worth them? Because they produce more, right? But you're not going to kill it and just destroy it. You're going to kill it and eat it, okay? And this is for food and for generating a big flock on his own. Nanette, go ahead.
Okay, so Rabbi, I want to just say, I really like your word transparent, because when Jacob did the whole porridge, not porridge, the stew in the a few parshas ago.
Yeah.
He didn't exactly let Esau know, hey, look, buddy, this is what I'm doing. He just did it. But this way, this transparency of his accumulated wealth, puts what he's he's gotten right in front of Esau. So there's no finagling,
Okay.
maybe.
There's no finagling. All right. So what I've been impressed by in this scene is that it's a procession, and that had me looking at something about hunting. Now, given that I don't know anything about hunting, okay, I always have to look things up. And what I was surprised to discover, but then again, not so surprised, is that hunting, especially in antiquity, especially in prehistoric world, and all the way up to today, there are many, many rituals and also parades associated with hunting. In ancient Egypt, we have this fragment, okay? So I could pull up where this is from, but you can see that it looks Egyptian. You could see that the three hunters here have weapons. They're in a procession, okay? So there's something ritualized about doing the hunt, okay? From these paintings, experts speculate, there are other paintings, that the earliest events consisted of prehistoric men triumphantly carrying the game they killed during a hunt back to their camp, okay? And here is the abstract of an article. Primitive cultures have a striking relationship with animals and remarkable rituals associated with hunting. Animals not only provide meat, but also hides and fur, bones for fashioning into artifacts and ceremonial objects. Two broad areas of hunting rituals are one pertaining to bribing or coaxing animals to present themselves to hunters, and the other involves appeasing the spirits of the animals once they have been slain. When animals are hunted, they are usually treated in a distinctive reverent manner, partly to propitiate the ghosts of the animals so as not to be harmed by them. Many cultures also show respect to plants grown for food. The practice of reciting magical spells on traps in order to attract game is practiced in many cultures. In numerous cultures, ceremonies take place in preparation for whaling and whaling songs. Bears seem to be more venerated than any other hunted animal in the world. And there's more and more and more about this, okay? So it shouldn't surprise us then that that hunting, which is so far removed from our culture and from our frame of reference, would involve something, I don't want to say sacred in the sense that, you know, we understand, but sacred, of course, to the hunter. They regard, you know, in primitive societies and in Native American societies, hunting is a very sacred act. There's reverence shown to the animal. There's understanding that the animal is present for food and that the hunter requires skill. The hunter requires the assistance of gods or the assistance of, you know, other people. And the tribe is shaped around the formation of the hunt. And that when the animal is hunted, there is a kind of revelry in the sense that we now have what to eat, but there's also a sense of atonement, a sense of sorrow. I not for this class, but for another class a while ago, when I was trying to research the whole idea of whether or not the ram was a wild ram in the Akeda story. So I started looking at hunting videos, and I was, I shouldn't say shocked, but I was amazed to see the culture around hunting. I mean, and of course, I'm, you know, presenting my ignorance here. That when hunters go out to the wilderness and hunt wild rams, these are large, beautiful animals. So in one scene on a video on YouTube, the man he shoots the animal, he kills the animal. He's filled with a kind of elation because he's been tracking this animal for hours and days. He finally gets the animal, and he's only allowed one animal by law. He goes up to the animal, he holds the animal, he puts his hands on the animal, and he weeps. And I was struck by this. I was struck by it. It's an emotional moment. You know, he took the life of the animal. He weeps for the animal. it's a catharsis for him. And now he's going to go and take the animal and bring it back and cut it and eat it, basically. And that's a very intimate relationship with the in the whole process, and it is completely removed from our world, and even more so removed because when we consume meat, we do it in such a detached way from its origins. I mean, we are 3 generations removed, maybe, or maybe less, from going to the farm and taking, an animal and bringing it to the shochet and having it shechted, and then having that relationship. We don't even have that. The closest way we get to meat is, a grocery store. We don't even see how the meat is cut and presented. We see it basically on a bone plate. Nanette, go ahead.
Okay, so I know it's not going to happen because I know how the story turns out, but based upon what you're showing, it looks to me like Jacob is showing off his skills. Which
So
is that bad? Is that good?
He's not showing something off as much as he's doing something else. In the meantime, let me share with you just one quick aspect of this. Okay, back to this. This is the idea of parades. I'm sorry, I closed on that scene. This is from the North American Hunter. Okay, and the idea of a parade in antiquity is matched with parades today. This is Polish hunting game parade ceremony. Okay, here we go. So the hunters and their quarry. Animals are honored. Hunters admire their bounty. Ceremonial trumpets. What? Ceremonial trumpets for hunting, of course. Music. The hunt is relived. Okay, so you have the hunters telling the story. The king of the hunt is named. You missed the fact that he had blood on his face. Gets a medal. Blood on his face. Horns. And music. Wow. That's amazing. The fact that so there's, I mean, and why should it surprise us? Of course, there's a reverence there, and they're going to go and eat the animals, and there's something quite primitive or connected, I guess I want to say. All right, let me just bring you one more article about this, and then I'll go to my main point, my other point. So from the meateater.com, we have the following. The Meat Eater is a Canadian hunting magazine. Hunters today still extend congratulatory handshakes, but blooding practices run the gamut. Some fathers coat both hands in blood, chase their screaming son through camp, and laughingly smear the boy's face, hair, and neck crimson. Others administer the ritual reverently. Joe Hamilton of South Carolina said his group's camp elder thoughtfully explained the symbolism while applying blood. They honored the new hunter for being quiet, patient, and stealthy to defeat the animal's natural defenses. They applied the first streak down the first timer's nose to honor the quarry's sense of smell. A second streak over the eye honored the quarry's sight. A final streak over the other eye honored the hunter's shooting eye and accomplishment. Not surprisingly, the most common ritual cited in Instagram poll involves drinking. As one wrote, we drink afterwards, whether we get a deer or not. It's Canadian, what can I tell you? Next in my poll was blooding, followed closely by eating the animal's heart, liver, and tenderloins for the evening's dinner. Several also said they paused before field dressing their skills to offer thanks and appreciation for the meat they were about to harvest. Some knelt and prayed and hugged, but all shook hands. Okay, so the reason why I got into this is because, okay, so now I have a different kind of frame of reference for this parade. Jacob is presenting a domestic parade, and Esau, we are assuming, as a hunter, in a society that's organized around hunting is probably used to this kind of a parade, in which they would return from the hunt, place their animals reverentially, sing, sound instruments, blood themselves, drink festively before having a festive meal to celebrate and to feast on their quarry. Okay, so you can't be more opposite than that. On the one hand, you have the hunter, and on the other hand, you have the domesticated family. Okay, so the message that Jacob is presenting here is: 1, you're a man, got it. 2, here's your starter flock. 3, here is your avenue to salvation, to domesticity. You can have my life if you do this. Okay, I think, I mean, my theme is we get very committed to our interpretation. So I've become very committed to this line of reasoning, which is the man is trying to trick him all the time. Okay, the man is always trying to pull a fast one on him, and if the message is, if I as a reader can pull out these messages from him, there's dramatic irony within irony within irony. The irony is that I understand this, and Esau may not understand this yet. That's dramatic irony in literature, okay? But that Esau may come to understand this, and there will be a reason why he will come to understand this. One of the reasons why is because he has a father and a mother. His father loves game, but his mother evidently does not. And that's important here. But Susie, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Why do you say he's trying to trick his brother? Maybe I think it's just trying to educate him.
So, we all try to educate, with various methods, okay? And I think, he's not coming out and saying to him, you be this way, okay? But there are messages here. And I think I have another case to make about Esau and intelligence. And Esau, I wanted to give this lesson, but I need to do more research on this, which is Esau is a bit of an ogre, okay, and an oaf, and this is a character type in certain kinds of not comic but folk tales. But for example, and this is where I got excited about it. If you see the character Shrek in the movie Shrek, or the giant in The Princess Bride, or the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk, and Esau and Samson all have one thing in common. They all speak in riddles. It's remarkable to say, and I need to kind of talk to an anthropologist or a folk anthropologist to really get to the heart of this, which is that they speak in riddles. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman, right? That's Jack and the Beanstalk. Or Fezzik in the Princess Bride is always playing with words, okay? And Samson, who is the hairy model in the book of Judges, he's always doing riddles. Shrek is doing riddles. And I'm sure there are more examples of this. What is it about these oafish figures that brings them into contact with this? So the best I can do is they're so detached from, or so everybody thinks that they're all about their strength and their gargantuan size. So they have to present their mind. And so the way that they present their mind is through elaborate puns and riddles. And that's why this seems to be a character feature of oafish personalities. They need to present themselves as smart, okay? They need to they need to come off that way because everybody knows that they are brute strength and nobody takes them seriously. And that's why they can be outsmarted. David, I don't know what Goliath, I didn't look at too deeply at Goliath, but Goliath is a perfect example. Goliath is an oaf and is completely outsmarted on the battlefield by David. Why? Because as an oaf, he has size, but not dexterity. And David has the dexterity that enables him to move outside of his peripheral vision and hit him. Okay, Ruth, and then John, go ahead.
So I'm trying to remember the words that were used here. Educate. He was trying to educate him, or he was trying to trick him. I don't think he was trying to educate him or trick him. I think he was just trying to appease him. He's really scared. He's scared for his life, and it's just kind of like a bribe. I mean, it's a very big gift, but the bigger the gift, the more, like, well, maybe he's not such a terrible guy. He's giving me all this stuff. So I don't see anything in there except for Jacob trying to, save his own tushy.
Well, look, that's the most plausible plain reading of the text, which is that he's giving him a present so that to atone for his past sins, to pay up, as we've said here, and to make up and to compensate him. Okay, but I think on a deeper level, what's going on is he wants to domesticate him, and he wants to do that in a way that does not insult him, but it kind of does. Okay, and because he is an oaf and thinks he's smart, he really doesn't realize here that he's always being outsmarted here. John, go ahead.
I just have a little problem with the oaf characterization. The scene where Esau says to Jacob, have you not one blessing for me? Rabbi Sachs says, I think he says that's the most moving, or one of the most moving parts in the Torah. An oaf doesn't speak that way, I think.
No, on the contrary, yes. So it is one of the most moving scenes. He is quite poetic, okay, as a way of compensating for his gargantuan or his impulsiveness. I think that his language is always measured, and because he wants to present himself in a way that he's not a cultivated figure, but he needs to present himself with elevated language. I agree with you on that. I just, I'm not sure we're different. I'm coming at it from a different angle there. Yeah.
It just seems it's so emotional. It's hard to believe that Esau is calculating. It seems to come from when you say an oaf has to present himself, it implies some calculation that he's thinking about. He's self-consciously projecting in a certain way. Whereas I think that language, that scene comes from the heart. There's no calculation at all.
Well, we have to observe the way people behave, and I don't have examples coming to mind, except I do, of people who are quite oafish in their behavior, who, at certain solemn moments, put it on, with relish. They speak in a kind of elevated way, and that's so not who they are. Okay, but I have to find a better way to present that. Go ahead, Nanette.
So, Rabbi, I'm not so sure that Esau was insulted, because, I don't even think he understood being, insulted, or whatever word you used, I forgot. Just maybe Jacob is speaking his language. Esau understands the language of the hunt, the kill, the animals. So maybe Jacob is, speaking his language.
He's speaking his language, and I think I'm sorry to say this, but I think as much as he's transformed, there's still a lot of Jacob in him, and that's
right.
And that he is. It's a bit condescending, look, I would prove that case by saying something else that's not in front of us, which is that, you know, when they have their encounter and they hug and they kiss, you know, they basically, Esau said, "Come, we'll dwell together," and Jacob basically says, "No, we're not." Okay, and it's from that, and there's one other piece. It's another lesson, which is there's actually one element missing from this whole story, and you would think, you know, speaking of sacrifices, you know, Abraham, lots of sacrifices, Isaac sacrifices. Jacob already has had one moment where he's made a pact with his father-in-law. Just in the previous chapter, he ran away. Lavan follows him up. He catches him, and then they have the big cathartic kind of showdown where they're yelling and screaming at each other. And they finally say, "Okay, you can go your way, I'll go my way." And they make a monument, and they have a feast. They have a feast, and it's a ceremonial feast. If you look at this story up, down, and sideways, you won't find a ceremonial meal. This is really important, at least to me, on this reading, which is to say, well, wait a minute. You know, here you are, two brothers, you came together, you know, isn't that happy? It is happy. And wouldn't you think that you would, you know, take a couple of the sheep and slaughter them and throw a couple of pieces of bread on the fire pan and have a little feast? Nowhere does it say that. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, but the fact that the Torah doesn't even take a hint says there's no real love lost here. Okay, they're together, but they're not together. There's no pact here. There's no covenant here. There's no nothing here. There's and I am aware of it, and I'm saying here with condescension to Esau that you know, is part of the story here. He's not aware. He doesn't know this, nor does he want it. He's like he's supposed to go away, and that's exactly what he does. Susie, and then I'm going to go to the end of the
yeah. So when Esau says, you know, "Come, let's live together," I don't think he meant it, and I think Yaakov knows that, and that's why he responds the way he does.
Perfect. Okay, good. So then, what does he do at the end? Here's what he does. This is the coda to the story in Genesis 36. We've gotten everything. So I'm going to read it in Hebrew. I didn't have the translation. Vayikach Esav, he took Nashav, Vetbanav, Vetbanotav. He took his wives, his sons, and his daughters. Where do we get them from? We didn't hear of any. We heard of wives, but we haven't heard of sons and daughters. The et kol nafshot beito, and all the souls of his household. That miknehu, his flocks. That kol behemto, all his animals. That kol kinyano, and all of his possessions. Asher rachash be'eretz Canaan, that he had acquired in the land of Canaan. Vayelech el eretz mipnei Yaakov achiv. And he goes away to a land, doesn't specify which one, from his brother, from Yaakov, his brother. Ki haya rechusham rav mishevet yachdav, because their possessions were too much to dwell together. V'lo yachla eretz migurehem naset otam, and the land that they lived in could not sustain them mipnei miknehem, from all of their belongings. Vayeshev Esav b'har Seir, Esav hu Edom, and he dwells in Mount Seir, and he's in Mount Edom. I think, as I write here, it's the most underrated story in the Bible. Exaggeration, of course, because what happened? He went from being a hunter to being a family man, to being a man with wives, a man with children, a man with flocks, a man with possessions, and he becomes what Jacob imprinted on him, what Jacob gave him. Jacob gave him the starter flock, and Esau makes the transformation from the hunter. There's no more 400 men here. There's no more bloody rituals. There's no more parade of carcasses of animals. I'm exaggerating. There's a man with tents, with flocks, with wives, with children, and he moves from this land and he goes to a different place, and there's no agreement. There's no like Abraham and Lot. It's kind of an echo of that story where Abraham says to Lot, look, here's the land. You want this one? I'll go there. You want that one? I'll go there. There's nothing. He just goes on his own, okay? Here's the man who was the hunter, the impulsive, wrong brother, and we have a portrait of a head of a nation. Wives, sons, daughters, lives of his household, flocks, animals, possessions. How about that? 7, okay? 7 groups of his life, with a full life, in other words. Here's a man with a full life who at a point in his own direction, his own initiative, decides to pick up and leave Canaan because he had a Lot, Rav, and they couldn't dwell together, Yachdav, as brothers. And we can ask the obvious question, what were the options available to him if he wasn't able to live together with his brother? Well, the first story of brothers in the Bible tells us what happens when brothers are not able to live together. They fight. In this case, we would expect a war, especially since Esau is a hunter. Esau, in the previous encounter, had a band of 400 men, a small garrison that could have easily clashed with Yaakov and defeated him. So why doesn't he do this? This is the transformation to domesticity. This is a man who ceases to be a warrior, who himself becomes a family man. He has a bayit. Maybe at this point he has internalized something about his father, something about his mother. He wants his mother's love. The father's love was a foregone conclusion, but his mother's love was not. He wants to live out his life as a mirror image of his family man brother. He avoids conflict, although one descendant, Amalek, will become the archenemy of Israel, as if to say that he will be the one who avenges his grandfather of all the things that were done to him. But notice, in the list that he has, he is outside the proper pedigree. He is the 13th man odd out. This is Esau's genealogy. Esau, he has 3 wives, 3 chieftains. If you count up all the children, 4 plus 2, 5, 9 plus 3 is 12. Amalek, the single child of the concubine, is the odd man out. Doesn't belong to the nations of Esau. And for that reason, in this theory, will be the completely, totally annoying, evil, enemy of Israel. Okay? And this is the text. And it's all about Canaan. And there are other things that are going on here. Namely, why did it say which land? It doesn't say. The commentaries, all right, I'm going to stop there. And there are comparisons here of the different migrations. Esau has a migration, Avram has a migration, and the brothers have a migration. And there are elements that are common to all of those migrations. Just before we get to questions. All right. So the question then is, why does the Bible include a genealogy of Esau? And I'm going to offer the answer that Professor Sommer gave a couple of weeks ago, which I found very compelling, which is that we have in the Torah the idea of Israel's chosenness and covenantal chosenness. But the idea of parallel nations, I think, is a very powerful idea. And that what all of this goes back to is Abraham. What we have here is the completion of the population of the region, with the household of Abraham being divided up into Ishmael territory, Midianite territory, and now Esau territory. All of them, while not having covenants with God, have possessions of lands that are unique to them. That, I think, is one of the most undertold stories of the Bible, as Sommer mentioned. Helene Davis, and then Nanette. Go ahead.
It's my memory, Rabbi. I'm sorry it's starting to fail, but didn't Esau leave the stuff that Yaakov gave him? I thought he didn't accept it.
No,
Is that not true?
He takes
He
it.
did accept it.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, they have a debate, you know, but he takes it. He takes it. And so
Doesn't he say somewhere, I don't need your stuff?
no, it's Jacob who said that. Well, we should go ahead and read that. But they have this dance with each other, and he ends up taking it. Jacob doesn't take anything from Esau, okay, and that puts a kind of etiquette inequality between the two of them. There's another theme here, which is the theme of what's really involved in gifts, and there's a whole philosophy of that, which I may have touched on in the past, and we'll get to another time. Go ahead, Nanette.
So I know I went back and forth in this now, but in answer to your question about why the whole, tree for all the players, you said this for many years. Just maybe if God is creating, if the bottom line for Hashem is to create a relationship with the people and to make families stick together, then maybe this is an illustration of what God really wants. This special relationship, people to figure it out and to make a family.
Indeed, I think that Esau becomes, quite remarkable in the fact that he does found a family, and as I said, this is, it's why would anybody preach on this subject? Because Esau looms so large in the Jewish imagination as the anti-Yaakov and as the enemy, and has become for the rabbis and for all Jewish history the arch anti-Semite, or the arch, Esau becomes a figure for the rabbis. Esau is a symbol of Rome, right? The bloodthirstiness, the cruelty, the reverence of power, and bloodletting and hunting, that is all associated with this kind of military and militant society. And it won't surprise us that Esau and Edom is also associated with Christianity, because the medieval experience that many Jews and Jewish communities had next to Christianity was exactly that. They often fell victims. So they disguised their contempt for Christianity as contempt for Esau. Anybody reading this, in medieval commentaries that focus on this are reading a code that is a disdain and contempt for the surrounding society. Look, I can't even escape it myself. In presenting hunting, you want to go feh. I become like my grandmother. It's and you have all sorts of pejorative things to say about the disgusting nature of hunting and all that. No Jew who is immersed in the Jewish tradition can find a corner, a fraction of an inch of appreciation for the spirituality of that. It's complete abhorrence to those of us who inhabit this tradition. And yet, if you were to sit down and to listen and to read and to understand, hunters have hunters who hunt out of a certain spirituality of food and the wild. There's plenty to offer, in respect for that. Go ahead, John.
I think your presentation, I think it's fantastic, of Esau acquiring the values, let's say, of Jacob. But to me now, I feel even stronger that he's not an oaf.
Yes, okay. So that's why I didn't give that lesson. I don't have enough proof yet. I'll come next year, maybe. Go ahead, Helene.
I just wanted to, I had to unmute. I just wanted to say that in my dealings with my mother-in-law of blessed memory, she always told the story that once she was approached on the street for charity and she didn't give. And she was cursed. It always bothered her that she was cursed. If you don't give to Yaakov, you're going to give to Esau. That was the curse of the day.
Sure. So and the fact that it kind of lodged so deeply, as emotional shrapnel, only tells you how powerful these archetypes are. Esau is Esau son of Yaakov. Esau son of Yaakov. Esau is a hater of Jacob, and that goes all throughout history. These are not insignificant models and symbols for us. They're really very, very powerful. But I think, again, I want to be benevolent to him, and I want to say that there's a lot to feel sympathetic to him. If you kind of peel away the trainload of tradition that heaps upon Esau all of these negative stereotypes and negative attributes, and just look at him. So here's a man who loves his father, who's respectful, who's obedient, who does whatever he can, who is talented at hunting, and who transforms himself from the wild man hunter into the domesticated family, clan, nation builder leader through the ingredients, the starter flock that his brother gave him. So one way of reading this is that his brother's stealthful way of educating him actually worked and transformed him. And so that Esau becomes a legitimate heir to the legacy of Abraham, albeit without the covenant. Now, this puts the later encounter that Edom has with Yisrael as they come out of the desert and they come out of Egypt into a different frame. Edom doesn't let Israel pass through its territory, and Edom becomes very cruel to Israel, and will pay a huge price for that later on in the biblical story. John, last word.
Just a question. Is it not so that Herod is an Edomite?
Correct. So Herod is called the Idumean, right? And what's his pedigree? And so that makes for some profound ironies in the whole history. But that takes us. I don't even know where to go with that, frankly. I mean, it's a fascinating thing. And what do they mean by Idumean there? And is it the same as Edom here? I'll have to consult my ancient historian friends. All right, with that, we have concluded. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.